Just days out from the start of the Rio Olympics. Yes, they are finally almost upon us. An emergency team of more than 600 people have been brought in to try to resolve issues inside the Olympic Village. With 3 days to go, in fact, the team is repairing everything from leaky pipes to missing shower heads, exposed wiring, missing doorknobs and blocked toilets. Our sports editor, Stephen Hewson, has arrived in Rio as a bit of an Olympics veteran. Well, how does the city's readiness compare to other Olympics he's attended?
Well, this is the 4th Olympics I've been to, John, and it's nothing quite like any of those. If Rio was a couple of years out from these games, you'd say that they were going all right. But the fact they're a couple of days out, it just looks like everything's got a veneer. It's sort of there's certainly a rush to get last-minute construction done. Many parts still look like a construction site, and there's just very much sort of a sense of unreadiness rather than preparedness for these games.
Stephen, what about security and, of course, Zika, which everyone's talking about? Is there a general sense that Rio isn't that safe?
There's certainly a strong security presence around at places like the airports. When we arrived in Rio, there were sort of heavily armed soldiers around the place, sort of every 10 metres or so, sort of patrolling around. Out on the streets around the venues, there's certainly been a few army convoys floating around, and also strong police presence as well. There's all sorts of various forces that sort of, whether they're state, city or national, they all seem to be sort of getting involved, and you see a lot of very different uniforms around the place, but all heavily armed. I suppose health-wise, Zika, there was a lot of talk about that ahead of these games. So far, I haven't seen a mosquito at all. So, I mean, I'm not trying to belittle the situation, but it's the Rio Mayor, Eduardo Paes, said ahead of these games that it was going to be winter time, as it is here in Rio, but it's still sort of 23, 25 degrees. And he said, Zika, we just don't see that as a problem in Rio. Dengue is a greater problem generally in Brazil and Rio, and he sort of talked about that. But as far as Zika goes, it doesn't seem to be a factor at all for locals, and it hasn't actually been much of a discussion point since we've been here for these last few days either.
Stephen, one final question before you go. Has the team arrived? Is everyone representing New Zealand there?
The bulk of them have. I mean, as many of them that will be here are here in the sense numbers-wise. I mean, 199 is the total number of this team, but what's going to happen, people like Valerie Adams are only coming in and spending a couple of days, 2 or 3 days here, same with the likes of Nick Willis. So they haven't arrived yet, but total numbers-wise, as big as it gets, and then sort of people will come and go over the next couple of weeks when the games finally get underway.
Stephen Hewson, who is in Rio, one of the athletes who's already there, and one of the first to compete is Kiwi kayaker Mike Dawson. He's in the canoe slalom. Mike funded his Olympic dream by publishing and selling his own cookbook, made up of 22 of his favourite recipes. He told Stephen he had a good feel for the city already.
Yeah, we've been fortunate enough to be here off and on 10 weeks in the last 5 months, so got a good feel for the city, a good feel for the course which we're going to be racing on, which is a huge advantage for Luca and myself. Also got a chance to really meet a lot of the people around the city, see a few other things going on before the Olympics really got into full swing, so it's been quite eye-opening, quite a good experience, and a lot of fun.
And you've been involved in a social program in the favelas?
Yeah, me and a buddy, we just decided that we wanted to give a little back to those that don't really get too much of the whole Olympic spirit, because they're obviously not from the environments that we're from. So we gave a bit of food out to a few people and made their day, and tried to just share a bit of the stoke of what we do and why we're here, and leave a little mark on them. I don't know if it changed their day or their week, but they seem pretty happy.
So what got you into that, and what did you actually do?
Yeah, it's a funny story, because in our hotel room we always cook a bit of food, and I had a little bit of food left over, so I just ran it out the front of the hotel to some guys, some young fellas. They were about 11 or 12, sleeping on the street, and gave it to them, and their face just lit up, man, and they just started wolfing it down and getting it in them as fast as they could. So kind of got a little thought going inside my head that maybe we could do a little bit more for more people, and obviously I've been really lucky to get here and have such an amazing support from New Zealand to support me, to help me financially get here as well, so it's nice to give something back.
Because you do a bit of cooking, don't you? You've got the recipe book, was your fundraiser.
Yeah, so I had a out of it fundraising, tried to think outside the box and had a cookbook, and blown away by the amount of support from New Zealand. It's incredible, and it motivates me and fires me up for the race day, and because I'm that lucky, it's nice to be able to share a bit of that with everyone else.
Recipe wise, what were your specialties?
Oh, for this project, actually we just used our sports nutrition education that High Performance has helped us out with, and put in a few of the core foods to help someone live for a week. So your carbohydrates, some things, some fruit, some milk, proteins, that kind of stuff, just your staple foods.
Is that something you see a future for yourself in chefing?
Chefing, I'd love to start a restaurant cafe, but who knows, I've got still a young fella, so I've got a lot of time left in the boat.
It must be tough for you having to go through that, and maybe when you look at some of the other sports that are here in Rio, you must be a little envious as to the financial backing that they get.
Not at all, I love my sport. I don't do it for the money. I do it because I love the feeling of getting out on the water. I'm stoked when I have a good run, good feeling, good vibes, and if it was about the money, it would be great that you don't have to worry about that, but at the same time it gives us so many opportunities. It means we have more flexibility, we get to train where we want to train, we have a good core training group and can kind of run our own program rather than in the big teams that you don't really have that flexibility.
Mike Dawson talking to Stephen Hewson.